In January of 2019, 20-year-old Tre'shun Miller was shot dead by Arlington, Texas Police Department. The primary purpose of this production is to expose some of the techniques used by APD and other police departments across the country to manipulate public perception by demonizing their victims and blaming everyone else for their dishonest, violent, cartel-like behavior. A very minor and unproven traffic violation quickly turned into a full-blown drug investigation that grossly violated the driver of the vehicle, endangered the public, injured a cop, and killed Tre'shun. Not once does APD take responsibility for their part in causing such devastation to their victims. What you are about to see is the first portion of a press conference about that incident. Notice how APD's Lieutenant Christopher Cook speaks with authority as he recites his carefully worded script.
I want to provide some brief remarks real quick and kind of provide an overview of what we're going to do. We're going to watch portions of the digital evidence consisting of body-worn camera footage and also dash camera footage from the primary officer.
It's extremely important to understand that the footage about to be presented by APD was very carefully selected to protect their establishment. This footage wasn't released until January 17th, a full 6 days after the shooting incident that left Tre'shun dead.
At the conclusion of this viewing of the digital evidence, Police Chief Will Johnson will provide brief remarks pertaining to this incident. I would ask that you would please hold your questions until after his briefing.
Indeed, after the carefully selected videos were shown, reporters had questions. One in particular was damaging to the APD narrative, but APD excluded the questions in their uploaded version of this press conference. That question had to do with APD's history with Tre'shun. It was about a previous incident between APD and Tre'shun in which Tre'shun was so severely brutalized he was hospitalized. I will devote a video to the Q&A session that took place following APD's scripted account of this tragic incident.
Each member of the media will also receive a disc containing this limited video release at the conclusion of the press conference.
A more accurate statement would be something like, high-ranking members of APD have worked closely with our attorneys and we have decided what it is we can give you, reporters, that will get us into the least amount of trouble.
There's also some media packets that contain relevant information related to arrest warrant affidavits and social media profiles.
So not only will members of APD release to reporters what won't make APD look horrible, members of APD have also decided to give reporters as much information as possible to villainize their victims. Did they go to the extent to find social media that made their victims look good? I bet not. But here are a couple of clips I found about their ultimate victim, Tre'shun, and the driver, his longtime high school friend, Jessica.
If you can't honestly just sit down and be like, damn, what if I'm wrong? Then you'll never be able to wrap your head around this.
I watched from across the parking lot as at least 3 bullets entered Tre's body, which means the cop that shot him, who was way closer, knows multiple bullets entered Tre's body. And the cop got the first one. The cop was taken to the nearest hospital. They took Tre forever to get transferred anywhere, and they pronounced him dead about 3 hours afterwards. There is no doubt in my mind that they let him die, you guys.
As we start to view this digital evidence, there are 4 key factors to consider as you watch it.
For 7 days, local media has reported talking points given to them by APD. Now, rather than allow observers to view the carefully selected digital evidence with their own eyes, Lieutenant Cook further manipulates observers by telling them what to think and what to see.
Number 1, we are making relevant video footage available consisting of body-worn camera footage that involves the investigation of possession of marijuana, evading arrest, and attempted capital murder of a peace officer. You will also see dash camera footage of a portion of this investigation.
I have viewed these videos with my own software, frame by frame, and have yet to see any evidence that marijuana was found in the vehicle, that it belonged to Tre'shun, or more importantly, that Tre'shun attempted to kill an officer. In fact, a more logical conclusion to draw from viewing these videos is that Tre'shun was running for his life.
Number two, the primary officer was on patrol, assigned to the West Patrol District, and conducted a search of the license plate of the suspect vehicle prior to making the traffic stop.
Cops can and do scan license plates willy-nilly while vehicles are moving, yet it's customary to blur plates, as you can see in the dash cam footage here. So how and why did Dallas-Fort Worth's NBC get this search warrant related to this case with unredacted license plates?
Officers routinely check license plates while on patrol, and the query returned a match on the vehicle indicating that the car that was stopped at the signal light had been involved in a previous drug case in November of 2018.
So the plate scan indicated that the car was quote-unquote involved in a drug case just 2 months earlier. Pretty objective, right? What else?
Specifically, the computer return indicated that there could be potential occupants in the vehicle that were the subject of an investigation related to possession of marijuana and drug paraphernalia.
Oh, now I get it. The cop assumed the occupants might have a little weed on them.
After receiving this information, the officer noticed a traffic violation as they turned onto Randall Mill Road from Fielder.
Want to know what that traffic violation was?
Lieutenant Chris Cook says an officer pulled over the driver, Jessica Lawson, for failing to signal a turn.
Police say the shootout happened after an Arlington officer made a traffic stop for failure to signal a turn.
Nope. Jessica actually did signal, but these reporters and countless article writers got it wrong.
The police department, reason being stopped today is you had your signal turned off when I got behind you. I know you turned it on before you turned. You gotta have it on 100 feet prior to the turn, okay?
So the police officer admits that she did have her turn signal on. She just allegedly didn't turn it on 100 feet prior to turning.
Number three, the traffic stop within just a few short seconds of the officer making contact transitioned to a drug investigation.
The traffic stop transitioned to a drug investigation. This is word manipulation. A traffic stop isn't something that can transition. A traffic stop doesn't have a mind of its own. Transitioning from a traffic stop to a full-blown drug investigation is done by people. In this case, the transition was a deliberate act of a man with a gun. But by saying that a traffic stop transitioned to a drug investigation, it removes responsibility from the cop. This type of language actually gets us to believe that the cop who conducted the traffic stop had nothing to do with the outcome of his actions. When cops do bad things, according to them and their supporters, it's not their fault. It's everyone else's fault. To include, in this case, the traffic stop.
The primary officer smelled the odor of marijuana when he made contact on the driver's side of the vehicle while the window was rolled down.
Not only are we supposed to have faith that this cop saw Jessica not signal 100 feet before turning, but we're also supposed to take it on faith that he smelled, how did Lieutenant Cook put it? The odor of marijuana? But perhaps even more relevant is the fact that nowhere in the officer's body camera does he say he smells the odor of marijuana.
This would have allowed the officer to ultimately search the occupants of the vehicle in addition to the car based upon the probable cause smell of the odor of marijuana.
Here we go again. Since when does an odor allow anyone to do anything? Does an odor talk? Does it give instructions? Does it give permission? It's another word to distance the cop from his actions. A cop would never injure another cop or kill Tre'shun. An odor did it.
And finally, number 4, while watching the dash camera footage, you will hear 2 sets of gunfire. Investigators believe the first set is the suspect firing at our officer. Detectives believe the second set is an exchange of gunfire between the suspect and the primary officer. Let's cue the video.
I'm not going to rehash those carefully selected videos except to say this. Out of perhaps hundreds of thousands of video frames that constitute APD's so-called evidence that a cop killed Tre'shun out of self-defense, there is one lone frame that utterly blows their bullshit out of the water. I might do a separate video about that. In the meantime, I'd like to share with you a couple of scandals I discovered about APD. Around the same time APD beat Tre'shun to a pulp, 16 of their finest cops gave up their police licenses to avoid prosecution. What did they do? Allegedly, they made up traffic stops to fulfill quotas that are illegal. The other scandal has to do with destroying important evidence. 2 high-ranking APD guys got caught and were reprimanded. I don't know much about this issue, but where there's smoke, there's fire. In conclusion, did Tre'shun actually shoot the cop that was injured? There is absolutely no evidence that he did. But to assume Tre'shun's guilt because a cop was injured is to ignore the fact that cops frequently shoot themselves accidentally. And they lie a lot. My next video will address the chief's portion of this press conference.
He says the department faces, and that is misinformation that is spread throughout social media.
Because misinformation is really your special job, isn't it, Willie? Thanks for watching, and I'll leave you with the words of one of my favorite philosophers, Mark Passio.
So what's the difference between a police officer and a strong-arm mafia enforcer? Nothing. There is no difference between them. They are both common criminals. They are both members of gangs, and I would have been that word to say they are both members of cults who do not question orders or think for themselves. They both initiate violence to enforce policy. Both have a code of secrecy, a lack of transparency, and both cite the institution's policies for the violence that they manifest in reality. They are ultimately responsible for their behaviors, yet they want to somehow abdicate themselves of that responsibility by saying, oh, the politicians ordered me to do it. The lawmakers ordered me to do it. It doesn't matter who tells you to do something that's wrong. If you did it, you're responsible for the harm.